Ngowi TV, informed economists and business perspective.
Cautiously optimistic of the budget presented. There are a lot of positives which I need to applaud the government for. We get to this situation. How did we get to a taxation dispute to the level that we have now? Which I think we need to look as we go forward. There's going to be this amnesty which the finance bill will give details, whether it will apply for the last 5 years or now and forward. But how did we get to this level of dispute? We need to look to avoid to go into that. And I think the blueprint has kind of spelled areas that we need to be very careful, and particularly on assessment and the tax assessors on how they go about their businesses on assessing the corporate as well as other disputed tax. The major issue which now I say I'm cautiously optimistic is we have seen two trends in this country for the last 18 months. One is prices are going down in real terms. Prices of assets are going down, both hard assets as well as soft assets. The prices of loans, the prices of mortgage are going down. You may celebrate that to be a very good thing. It's only good if fundamentals are right, and as a result of productivity, then you can have these prices going down. But second, which I mean is a worry, the level of non-performance loans are going up, which signal to me that there is a reduction in consumption. Now, if you go into an economy which has a low price, low consumption, and you want to project 7% growth, that growth is going to be very artificial. It's not going to be all-inclusive growth. You need a growth that will encourage consumption. We are putting new plans for ATC, which is very good. We're putting a new railway line, which is very good. We are putting a new power plant, which is very good. These are public assets which need to have strong consumption bases in the country to be able to take advantage of them. And doing so, you have a multiplier effect to spur the intended economic growth. Now, with these low prices and low consumption from both the data that we have, and now the data of the trade are very infrequently published by the Bank of Tanzania, which is another area of concern for us as to why the data is infrequently published. To me, it is an area of concern. We must see a growth which is consumption-led growth. At the same time, it's inclusive-led growth. I think those are the three takeaways for me. I will expect on the power that the Minister of Finance will be given, and this is my plea from the business community, he will be given power to net off VAT refund against corporate taxes and SDL and pay-as-you-earn. If the Minister will be given that, there is over 400 billion tax refund which is sitting with the government. If the Minister of Finance will be given that power, and against that he net off corporate tax and other tax, I think it will remove the distress on the business community, and it will allow liquidity to flow into the market, because otherwise some companies, especially those of export oriented, they do go and get a line of credit simply to meet the cash flow demand, which otherwise is because taxes have been locked by the authorities, and there is no mention on this budget what they are going to do on locked tax refund. Thank you very much.
For the business community, SMEs, I think this budget, in paper, I would say, because it depends how it's going to be implemented. At least, yes, the tone is positive. At least there's that change of tone, because for the previous years, it's been a cry from the SMEs, I mean, private sector, that the government is not too, friendly. I mean, the business environment was not very friendly. But at least now in this budget, officially you can see the issues of easiness of business environment, protecting local industries, enabling tax policies for the local industries, and promoting youth and women, as you have seen the 10% set aside for the interest-free rates. So yes, I think if these are well implemented, they touch and they are key to business SMEs and youth, especially youth and women. There are some positive highlights in the budget that I think I commend and very positive for the SMEs. like the 20% corporate tax for pharma and leather processes industries. I wish this could have put forward for other industries as well, the SMEs, the startups. But yes, it is a good start. We're starting there. If this continues and to other, I mean, extended to other industries as well, SMEs, youth projects, startups especially, because we're having problems now locally getting the investors coming in to invest in youth or startups because of, you know, hardship in this, tax, high tax rates and business environment. So I think, yes, this budget, that one item, scrapping off OSHA and Mrs. fees, and this also is a positive message to the SMEs and to others as well.
Professor Ngobi, I think almost logically I would say we see the public debt rising. Do you feel it is still sustainable?
Thank you. So, on the national debt, what's the figure now? The figure is 49.6%, around there. And of course, according to the budget speech, measured against several metrics, it is sustainable, reading from the budget. When we look at the debt against GDP, debt against export, those kind of stuff. But really, the major debate is not on whether the debt is sustainable or not sustainable. The major debate is the speed with which the debt is increasing. It is increasing like last year, I think at around 13%, those kind of stuff. And of course, in this stage where the debt is increasing so rapidly, the question is, we won't like to touch the ceiling anytime soon. Yeah. So if it is at 13%, and if it goes on like this, you may soon really touch the ceiling, and that is the worry. That is the worry, really. But really, the more fundamental issues is why debt? Why is the country indebted? And of course, we know it's no sin for any country to be indebted, really. But really the key issue for Tanzania, as is the case for many countries, is we have insufficiency when it comes to domestic resource mobilization, specifically when it comes to tax, We are not collecting enough tax, that's the point. That's why we have to depend on borrowing, we have to depend on, of course, on aid. This year's budget, I think it's around 55% or so, which will be coming from tax, But others will be, it will be borrowed. Now, again, when we look at the national debt, it's both internal and external, and really there are issues around all those. The national debt due to domestic borrowing has a lot of issues, for example, of crowding out the private sector. Because what is happening is, like this time around, I think the government is going to borrow, I think 400 billion or something like that, huge money. Financial institutions, where Felix once belonged, he still belongs, they'll tend to respect this huge giant who has financial and political muscles at the expense of the private sector. So, I'm not saying this is the issue, but those in the private sector may tell us, lenders tend to respect this client called government than this client called the private sector. So if you crowd out the private sector in a country where private sector is supposed to be the engine of growth, really it may be a problem. Those are, I think, part of the debate when it comes to national debt. But also, of course, for the external debt, the key issue is this external debt is mainly dollar denominated. It is denominated in foreign currency. But then its servicing is being serviced by Tanzania shilling. You collect it like this year, budget, 31% of the budget is for debt servicing, is for repaying money. So you could see this money and fungibility of funds. This is an opportunity cost. This money won't be available in the local economy. Assume 10 trillion shillings was pumped into the economy. Really, it will boost the economy a lot, but then it's going to fix, to use Nyerere words in 1980, it is going to balance the accounting books of the North. Those part of issues, and it's really an issue. It's really an issue. So you could see, and when you have a national debt denominated in dollar and then servicing in local currency, what happens is even without borrowing more, your national debt may increase. Why? Because of volatility of the foreign currency. In 2006, I wrote a book, and there is a chapter on volatility. What happens is if the shilling weakens, your national debt increases immediately because you need more shillings to pay the dollar. Those kind of stuff. Now I'll finish it off. Part of the issues when it comes to national debt is it necessary that the debt should be all that much big? And of course, now comes the question of PPP, public-private partnership. There is school of thought that maybe all this infrastructure we are seeing around, or some of those, maybe could be funded through public-private partnership, wherein the government might not necessarily need to borrow money to put up the railways, the roads, the ports, the airports. Maybe some private sector could do that. And I've written substantially on PPP. Theoretically, I know it's an option. It's possible, it's really possible. We have seen this. I studied at length the Sambu terminal. I studied the Kigamboni Bridge, and we had the Harvard students here. I lectured them on PPP at the Kigamboni branch and bridge, and possibilities there. So in my view, I think if the government could partly reduce the national debt by not borrowing, but then engaging the private sector. Now the question is, private sector, some of you are here. Do you have what it takes to engage into this huge infrastructure PPP? And to me, private sector does not necessarily need to be local. If local can't do it, and will tell us, let's go abroad. I mean, we're in a global village. So I think those are part of issues. To finish it off altogether is, I think, some of the worries when it comes to national debt, whether sustainable is to sustainable. Remember the rating agencies, the Moody's of the world, the Fitch rating and the Standard & Poor's. If the country wants to borrow more, and if we wanted to issue a sovereign bond, we tried in 2008, I think, but the global financial economic crisis did not allow us to do that. Partly, of course, they look at the rate at which your debt is going, even if it's sustainable, but then if it is increasing too rapidly, when you want to borrow in the global money market, they'll say, no, please, stop. And this is what we don't like to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry. As we have seen earlier in the presentations, I think the budget contains a lot of good and positive items. I think the budget speech in itself also touches on the right topics. Still, do you feel that there are things? Are you seeing things missing in the budget?
Yeah, I think one of the most important elements that was mentioned by the minister, perhaps skipped by most of the analysts, including the media, is the electronic tax stamp. The minister has announced that every manufacturing product which is non-petroleum is going to have a new tax called the electronic tax stamp. So most of you probably see it if you take hard liquor, that paper stamp that is stamped by TRI for imported products. Now it's going to be rolled out for all non-petroleum manufacturing products. So be it water, be it soda, be it juices and everything else that is being produced in the country. So even with the freeze of excise duty, you have another duty coming in on the other side, which I think it's quite broad, it's quite spread. The government expects to get at least 1.8 trillion out of it for the next year. And I think that's going to be very bad for manufacturing sector. We're trying to engage with the government at the moment. We're probably going to see them in Dodoma next week and see if we can roll that one back. We've really been trying before the budget speech to make sure that it doesn't make that. But I think for the government, it's quite an easy source of revenue. And I think they approach it from the wrong angle, which brings me to my second question about formalization. I think with ETS, the whole idea of reducing the informal sector, at least trying to capture those that are not in the net, actually weighs quite heavily on the ones that are already in the net. So I think the formalization aspect has not been taken care of quite strongly. There was a conversation with the Revenue Authority to see if we can have a different tax regime for those that have revenues below 200 million turnover a year. And the idea was to have them paying an alternative minimum tax of around 4%, of which we kind of thought was a bit on the high side. So ideally, this is how it works. I mean, the Revenue Authority will give you a free FD machine if you have any business that has a turnover less than 200 million, and you would record all your transaction in it. At the end of the day, they will calculate the gross. They will send your bill through a text message, and you can pay through an M-Pesa 4% of your gross revenues. When we did the numbers, that only made sense for anyone making a profit of around 15% every month. And we thought that was too high. If at all that was to be implemented, it should be somewhere between 1% or 1.5%. You have a 5% profit margin and everybody else can net off the rest from transactional costs, or as well as if they have made an investment, they can at least recuperate in their own run. The challenge with that, or at least this is what made the TRA back off a bit from this Finance Act, was that they didn't have the provision for those who would be making losses. Not everybody was doing businesses making profit at that point in time. So I personally thought that was a very bold move in terms of thinking about it, but I think they're probably going to try to tweak it around, probably present it in the budget around September or the December tenure. I think those are quite two missed opportunities that the budget could have done something fundamental, but they just freeze the exercise on one side and just added that exercise on the other side, which is pretty much back to square one.
Are you optimistic that the electronic stamp can be turned back? Or?
Yeah, I think there are alternatives to that. I think we really need to push hard as a private sector association. But I think this is also one opportunity to urge every one of you who is a member of the business community to belong in an organized private sector association. Whenever we go to talk to the government and we have the backing of all business community, really helps us make a case. I think if that won't go through in terms of dialogue, there's high likelihood that they will resort to legal measures. Because I think this one is big. We expect the loss to the economy to be somewhere in the tune of $100 million, and I think that's a whole lot.
In the long run,